You're listening to Online Pet Health Podcasts with Dr. Megan Kelly. Continuing education for veterinarian rehabilitation therapists. Learn more at onlinepethealth.com.
Hi Vet Rehabbers, happy birthday month Online Pet Health. We are turning 7 years old this month. I really cannot believe it. Our official birthday is on the 7th of February, but I'm going to be like my daughter now, so when it comes to birthdays, and we're going to spread it out. And at Online Pet Health, we always do this. We have a whole birthday month, and of course we eat lots of cake, lots of green cake, and we also like to spoil our vet rehabbers. So we've got loads planned for this month. You can find out more and get access by visiting our groups. So if you've not already, please come and join us. We have 4 Facebook groups. They're called the Small Animal Vet Rehabbers, Hydro Vet Rehabbers, Equine Vet Rehabbers, and the Business Vet Rehabbers. Now, this is where vet rehabbers hang out online. They share research, tips, and advice, and it's a great supportive community. We'd love to have you online there with us. So this is where we're going to be sharing all the online birthday fun and love surprises for all of you. Today's podcast is by Lisa Mason from VROMP, which stands for Veterinary Rehabilitation and Orthopedic Medicine Partners, and her practice, Florida Veterinary Rehabilitation, is one of the partners. Lisa shares with us the basics of budgeting for vet rehab practice to ensure that at the end of the day, your vet rehab business is making a profit. So in speaking about profit, there are a few ways to make profit in your practice. So the first one is to charge more. The second one is to get more clients. The third one is to sell more to your current clients, and the fourth one is to decrease your expenses. Now, in Online Pet Health, we have great resources for our vet rehabbers, and this is in our business basics section. We also have some of these resources for our free limited access membership. You can go and check them out. If you are an Online Pet Health member, just log into the members portal and go to the business basics section if you're looking for any of this content. If you are a free member, you can also have a look there. If you're not a member, free or paid member, and you'd like to download it, you can go to onlinepethealth.com/vet referral, and that's one word. All right, let's go and learn more about budgeting.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa Mason from Florida Veterinary Rehabilitation in DeLand, Florida in the United States. Today, we're going to talk about the basic budgeting for the rehabilitation practice. First, a disclaimer. I'm not a CPA, an MBA, an accountant, or any other financial advisor. I am a successful rehabilitation veterinarian and practice owner. And I'd like to share with you guys the basics of budgeting for a rehabilitation practice. So how do you get started with a budget? Financial matters can be really stressful, and it can be hard. Whether or not you already have a startup business and you're already functioning and you're drowning, or you're thinking about starting a rehab practice on your own, it can be really challenging to decide, how do we start with a budget, and what do we do, and what does that mean? So let's go over some of the basics of a budget today and how we can work that into a rehab practice. So our budget goal in rehabilitation medicine is to make money doing rehab. That's basically, we all went into this so that we could do what we love, help animals, and also be able to make money and to be able to make a living by doing this. We're not talking about huge amounts of money and being billionaires. We're talking about just being able to make ends meet and to make some type of a lifestyle doing this. So our basics of budget are going to include our total sales for the entire year, month, day. We subtract it to the cost of running the business, and we get our profit. That's as easy as it's going to get. But let's break it down into each one of those different categories so we can see how we can make some money, and we can see how we can make ends meet by using these basic principles of a budget. So first of all, what are the costs of running a business? So first of all, we have inventory, and this may be what we have in supply. It may be drugs, it may be rehab equipment, it may be supplements. You may have some type of supplies that you may sell, and you keep that on hand versus special ordering it for clients. Now, I'm not going to go into detail here today because I'm going to have a follow-up presentation strictly on this topic because I think it can be confusing. But what we do want to talk about are the other expenses and labor that we do have in a business. And one of those is going to be your fixed expenses. That's your rent or your lease, depending on what type of a property you're in. The basic utilities, gas, electric, water, garbage, recycling, those are things that you can't change. They're going to be what they're going to be. You may have permits, you may have equipment, maintenance, taxes, depending on what country you're in, what state you're in. They're going to vary and they're going to be different, but they're all going to pretty much be the same. And so we are going to count those as fixed expenses. We can't really change a lot of those things. We will touch a little bit on rent and lease here in a little bit. What we can change is our labor. We can change if we have vets or PTs. Do we have techs, assistants? How many receptionists? Do we have administration? Have we hired an accountant? Have we hired business management folks? So this is where we can alter the cost of running a business more. And when we look at rehab practices, I think a great deal of our budget is going to be focused in the labor department. So this is something that we can alter and play with a little bit. So how much profit are we aiming for? I want you to aim for at least 20% profit. And that may seem like a lot, but that's what I want you to aim for. And we're going to work through these numbers by using 20% profit as our baseline. But how do we achieve that higher profit? Well, we can only alter two things. As you can see in our equation, we can either increase the total sales or we can decrease the cost of running our business. And that's the only way we're going to achieve the higher profit. So let's work through these. How do we achieve that? By increasing the total sales. So let's just assume our expenses and labor are going to stay about 400,000. Our total sales are 450,000. And so our profit at this point is going to be 50,000. Easy numbers to look at. Well, that means our profit's about 11%, not quite high enough. If we can't or we won't change the expenses in labor, then therefore we're going to increase total sales. So when we do that, our profit's going to increase. So you can see, let's say if we just increase total sales to $500,000, keeping our expenses and labor the same, then our total profit's going to be 100,000, which is 20%. So that's well and great, but how do we get to that point? So we do that by either increasing the prices, increasing the efficiency of our appointments, or increasing our labor. What? We'll go over that. So when we increase our prices, these have to be based on your area of economics and the demand for rehab. You may have an area that is fully saturated with other rehab clinics. You may have an area that is devoid of any rehabilitation clinics and you're the only guy in town. And so your fees may be just kind of where they are because you don't have anybody to compare them to. We're going to make sure we're pricing ourselves for that unique worth in the education that we have. We're very specialized individuals. While everybody may not have diplomates or advanced degrees, we're all at least veterinarians or rehab therapists with some type of degree behind our names, some type of certificate, extra training. You are specialized. You are different than a regular veterinarian or a regular technician. So we want to make sure we're pricing these things appropriately. And we're also wanting to make sure we're charging for those services provided appropriately. So we're not going to give our services away for free. And that's really important. I know we all do this because we love helping dogs, but I think it's really important to make sure that we're appropriately charging so that we can appropriately run our businesses. So how do we determine the cost of that rehab exam? Well, one way to do it is to determine what's your local vet charge for a 30-minute physical exam. And I say the 30-minute physical exam because there's oftentimes vets that may come in with the low-cost model They may come in with a reduced cost exam, higher price, testing, diagnostics, vaccines, etc. So what's your basic local vet charging for a 30-minute physical exam? It may be anything. And I've, talked with a bunch of different people that I've consulted with, and some people tell me a lot higher prices, some people tell me a lot lower prices, but that's a good baseline that you can judge on if you're charging appropriately or not. So for instance, around my area, it may be $55 may be appropriate for a physical exam. Well, my charge needs to be higher because within that 30-minute exam, I'm going to give a more detailed musculoskeletal and neurologic exam. I'm going to provide owners with very specific details. I'm going to provide them with more one-on-one time with the patients, with the owners. I'm going to send them home with just at baseline a home exercise plan. So we want to make sure we're charging for our services appropriately. And in some cases, you may not feel comfortable to charge a large amount, but find where you're comfortable. And you want to make sure that there are some people that are saying your exam charge might be too high. And in some cases, you may not be able to service the entire community, but you have a little bit of the higher echelon coming to see you. And that's okay. And your exam charge should really reflect that. So for instance, around my part 55 is kind of a normal 30-minute physical exam. That means that my exam charge probably could be, maybe 20% higher than that. And I'm around $70 to $80. So it just depends. You don't want to outprice yourself. Say you live in a very rural area where the exam charge is $35 and you set your rehab charge for $130. You probably outpriced yourself for the area. But you want to find that happy medium of charge that you're able to get what you're worth, but you're a little higher than the local vets. We also want to be increasing the efficiency of our appointments. What that means is that your veterinarians should really only be performing the initial visits and rechecks. Plus, depending on your state practice act or your country's, determinations, whether that be they can only practice acupuncture or they can only be the only one doing chiropractic or whatever it is in your area. But those should be the things that other techs can do. We're going to utilize them. So for instance, underwater treadmill or even massage, and we'll go over that a bit more. But we want to also consider even using an assistant to help take notes during exam to expedite our time. So maybe you're spending 20 minutes doing your exam, evaluation, talking to your owner, and then you're spending 10 minutes of that time maybe writing down your notes. Consider paying an assistant to be able to take notes during your exam, and that'll help you to fly through. So maybe now you can spend a little more time talking to the owners, which is a value-added service. And they will be like, okay, I'll pay a little bit more because I'm getting that one-on-one time with my doctor. And you can have an assistant helping you with getting those notes done. Anything that can be repeated or performed by someone else should be. So whether that's even some client education, teaching them how to do home exercises, that can be very easily taught by a veterinary assistant who is trained. And we want to make sure that we're really admiring and giving that value to these veterinary assistants, because this is a specialty for them. The Academy of Physical Rehabilitation of Veterinarians or veterinary technicians, they are doing a great job with improving the education of some of our certified veterinary techs. And they can do a lot of things for us that we don't need to really be doing anymore, because our attention can be provided on the evaluations and the examinations of another patient. So the increase in the labor will increase our total sales. What? So we want to spend more money to make more money? Yes, that is correct. So we want to increase our trained labor. So that means getting certified and trained rehabilitation assistants and technicians that can perform a majority of the rehabilitation appointments. And then I've listed some here: the underwater treadmill visits, the therapeutic exercises, massage, even laser, ultrasound, shockwave. These are various modalities that can very easily be taught and is included within the teaching of these assistants and technicians. And, if you have one that's certified through UT or CRI, they're very capable of doing these different exams, or not exams, but modalities. And I think that's a very important use of their time. And we can actually pay them fairly well to be able to do these services, as long as we are charging appropriately for these services. Now, how do we decrease our expenses? That's going to be challenging. We're going to have fixed expenses, as I described at the beginning. And that's going to be lease and utilities. And what you want to make sure you're doing, and you may end up paying more in the beginning, but you want to start out with the proper space to be able to grow into, because you will grow. And that may mean a higher lease to start off. Okay. But you want to be able to plan that out, because you can grow into the space. You don't want to find yourself in a place where you don't have the space to grow and you're growing rapidly. And then you're going to spend even more money to have to, build out a space at that point. So it may be smart to start off with a larger space that you can grow into. Other things would be our equipment. Now, our equipment is going to also be a capital gain. That means that it's going to pay for itself, and it's going to make you even more money after it pays for itself. And it's ideal to purchase one item at a time and try and negotiate the best deal you can, so at events and meetings. So what I'm saying here is that we may not be able to actually decrease our expenses, but we can utilize our expenses to help with our growth and improve our sales overall. So here's an example of an equipment gain that we could have. And this could be used for anything out there. So let's say in US dollars, we have, some piece of equipment that costs $35,000. And we went to a conference, and the company offered us a loan for 12 months, no interest, no payments. Well, that's pretty awesome. We also get a free warranty for 5 years. All right, that sounds too good to be true, but it is true. They want us to buy these pieces of equipment. So how are we going to work it in the schedule? Well, it's going to take me about 30 minutes, and an assistant can run this piece of equipment. Great. So I'm going to charge the client about $75 per session. Let's say I only use it 3 times a day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year. That piece of equipment is going to make me $56,250. An assistant to run that's going to cost me maybe $13.50 an hour. So when we work that out, total sales minus the labor, minus the loan, we actually ended up making a profit by buying a piece of equipment. We made $11,125 profit for the first year. So you can buy these pieces of equipment that you're going to use and that you're going to improve your outcomes for your patient outcomes. And you're also going to improve your profit. And those are important pieces of equipment. And I showed a couple here: laser, treadmill, shockwave. It depends on what you preference within your medicine, within your treatment plans. What are you going to use more? And include those within your budgeting. So to increase our profit, we want to increase our sales, which means we're going to have effective pricing, efficiency, labor, and appropriate equipment to be able to increase our profits. So let's have a sample problem here. And this was a consult of mine. A veterinarian asked me, how do I make money doing what I love? Well, I asked them, I said, well, what does your local veterinarian charge for a 30-minute exam? He told me $70. And I said, well, that's pretty high. So even though she was in a bit of a rural area, the cost level around that area was pretty high. She was currently charging $200 for a 2-hour initial visit. The rechecks of 30 minutes were $75. Various other modalities at 30 minutes a piece were $75 as well. She had 1.5 assistants, so just a part-time assistant that would come and help her with books and things. They worked about 30 hours a week of actual appointments. and she was booked out for 6 weeks. So it was a very popular service, didn't have any room in the schedule to wiggle. And she was barely paying herself any money. And she was seeing one patient at a time. Her weekly sales were $5,000. So that meant her yearly sales, if we calculate 50 weeks of sales, was $250,000. So if we break that down into our budget, we've got a total sales over here at $250,000. Let's say she paid her staff. One of the full-time assistant was $35,000 plus her part-time assistant at $17,500. Let's say she paid herself $70,000. Fixed expenses are going to be about $100,000. Her equipment that she had just purchased, $35,000, which means she's at a minus $7,500. And this came out of her paycheck. So not making money. So how can we fix this? So our solution is, for our initial visit, let's increase that charge to $280. And honestly, that would be basically 4 30-minute exams at the local vet. So I didn't increase it by that much. Let's just increase by $10 at our rechecks, keep our modalities the same. Let's say she increases and hires more people. So she now has 3 assistants, 3 full-time assistants, all seeing patients for about 30 hours a week. So we can assume that one doctor is fully booked with 5 initials per week, which is $2,800, plus her rechecks at $3,400. Let's assume one of those assistants is fully booked, $4,500. So for a total weekly sales of $10,700, yearly sales at 50 weeks, $535,000. Holy cow. So that was a huge improvement. We went from $250,000 total sales to $535,000. Well, you tell me, well, she increased her staff. So now she's got more expenses. And so let's look at that together. Let's break it down. So the staff, let's say we have 3 staff members full-time at $35,000. We've increased how much we're paying ourselves at $100,000. That's pretty appropriate for this industry in the United States. We have a fixed expenses of $100,000. She's making profit now, so we're going to increase the taxes. Again, that's going to be variable depending on where you live. And then let's say she bought another piece of equipment. So now we have 2 pieces of equipment. Her profit is still $107,000 at 20% profit. So by all we did was we bought a new piece of equipment, we hired 1.5 people, and we increased our price to an appropriate level for the industry for her area. And now all of a sudden we're making profit. These are small little things that we can work on doing and be able to do what we love and make a living doing it. So our take-home points, we're going to know our fixed expenses. We know that they're not going to change, okay? We want to purchase equipment that's going to improve our outcomes and our sales. We want to price our services appropriately. We're going to hire trained labor to function alongside that vet. And we're going to work efficiently by delegating those treatments to our non-DVM staff where we can. Remember, the total sales minus the cost of running our business equals our profit. The only way to increase that profit really is to increase the total sales. As you go through this budget, monthly, yearly, even weekly if you want, you're going to need to follow your sales, profit, and growth goals. You want to see if you're maintaining that goal. Maybe work with an accountant to anticipate and reduce your tax burden, and then increase your staff as needed to function efficiently and to increase the amount of patients that you're seeing, because ultimately that's really the most important thing here. We need to reach out and touch this entire industry, and the number of patients is much higher than what we can handle these days. So we need to try and increase the amount of patients that we're seeing, and you will be able to make money in this industry. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at flvetrehab@gmail.com or reach out to Michelle and staff at Onlinepethealth, and they'll be able to help you get in touch with me. I've really enjoyed teaching you guys more about budget, and please have a wonderful day.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. I'm here every week talking to vet rehab therapists from all over the world about all things vet rehab. Don't forget to bookmark the next Vet Rehab Summit on Saturday, the 4th of November. Come and be a part of the world's largest online veterinary rehabilitation conference created specifically for you, the vet rehabber community. Onlinepethealth members get VIP complimentary access to the Vet Rehab Summit. For more information about continuing education for vet rehabbers, you can go to onlinepethealth.com.